Fuabuahin visited some hospitals in the capital city, Accra. But there's more turmoil on the labor front. This afternoon, 3 teacher unions, major unions in Ghana's higher education sector, the University Teachers Association of Ghana, the Technical University Teachers Association of Ghana, and the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, warn they will also go on strike if government does not pay exchange rate differentials as well as book and research allowances. The unions say they are deeply frustrated and concerned over the undue delay in the disbursement process. According to a joint statement, the delay has created significant uncertainty among members, many of whom rely on the allowances to fund vital academic and research work. The unions say they will no longer accept any grace period beyond September 25. Government now has up to June 13, however, to release the exchange rate and begin payments, or the unions lay down their tools. Professor Elias Mumuni is UTAG National Secretary. He's joining us for a bit more on this. Prof, good afternoon to you. But let's talk about this issue that has come up strongly this afternoon. Why do you believe the government has consistently delayed the release of your allowances?
Yeah, Hemeni, good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your platform, and good afternoon to your viewers. So oftentimes, in the case of this, our book and research allowance, we've always had as a process that the first quarter of the year is always a period of the release of the exchange rate that allows universities to now prepare a list of beneficiaries for subsequent payment. And we are now in second going to third quarter, and that hasn't been done. Earlier, we gave that kind of an open chest and space to government because we knew they were changing leadership. And in that regard, the procedural and bureaucratic delays, would have come in naturally. And so we needed to relax and allow government to settle in and then do the needful. Over the period, we've realized that post-April, May, and now in June, we really haven't had any significant development in that regard. And several efforts being made to get these things released to the universities for onward processing hasn't really been coming through well. And so we met as unions, and the broader resolution was that let's carry through the frustrations of members and let government know that things are not well in our various campuses, and that we are offering government quite a lot of space within the week to get these things done so that we wouldn't be moving into the realm of industrial unrest. And so basically that was the issue that we put out to the public.
So, I mean, two issues come up in your statement. You have the exchange rate and then book and research allowance. Could you explain what this is for us?
Yes, so the book and research allowance is basically a lump sum that is often paid to university, academic and non-academic staff for effort made in the previous year. And oftentimes there's a formula that government always uses in calculating the rate. That is more or less using an average of the last year's dollar performance. And because most of our research and publications are done using the dollar for global publications, often this particular lump sum is paid in dollar equivalent. And that requires that if payment is to be done, it has to be computed in the dollar rate, and then we paid in cedis. And so, like I said, we were supposed to have had this particular fixed amount of a rate from government. And that was in the first quarter of this year. But we relaxed because we wanted government to actually settle so that we could further engage to make sure that the rates are put across to universities through GTAG, and then the payment schedule now begins. And the payment process is what we should have been dealing with at this point, and not even about rates. And that is why you see a combination of the issuance of the rate as well as starting the payment process immediately, because per our traditional calendar, it has to be done before September, because the academic cycle, as you and I know, often begins from September and then move into the next year of 2026. And that is why we told government that whilst we reckon that these rates really have been delayed, it shouldn't really affect the payment cycle as we've always been experiencing. And so we're hoping that with this engagement, we should be able to get government issue the rate as quickly as possible and then guide our universities to quickly start the payment process.
I see, but out of curiosity, why did UTAG to agree to peg its book and research allowance in dollars instead of cedis when, you know, in our country, the national currency is the cedi?
Absolutely. Oftentimes, these are the questions we do get. But in the publication and research mode we do, you know, as Africans and Ghanaians in particular, we really do not have that global publication platforms that as scholars that we cherish and know. And so, for instance, if you pick publishing houses like Macmillan, Springer, Science Direct, Elsevier, you know, you're talking of Lancet and many of these other standardized global publication platform, everything is in dollar. And so you may have to convert your CD into the dollar to publish. And so that is why when government historically was to now support us to be publishing, it was agreed that since we publish by paying in dollar form, why don't we now fix this particular allowance in that dollar form so that the market determines that freely, instead of us saying putting it in CD, and with our CD not being very stable, unlike until now, you know, was something that we had as a challenge.
I see.
Why not? If we are lucky going forward, like the way the stability has come to the CD, it's if we are able to sustain it as a country, it then becomes important that gradually we can now plan around the rate, the local rate.
Very well.
And then consistently we should be able to publish by using the CD to pay.
Prof, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us.